and I now am pleased to welcome our distinguished guest speakers for the discussion, Mr. Ali Jillani, Vice Chair of the Karachi Research Chair and representative of the Other Stakeholders Group for the Asia-Pacific Regional Civil Society Engagement Mechanism.
Excellencies, delegates and colleagues. The multidimensionality of the current crises has exacerbated the already enfeebled public service infrastructures, exposed the frailties of our macroeconomic governance, and questioned our collective ability to respond in the absence of strong political will to address the systemic barriers. Meanwhile, the Asia and the Pacific region continues to be confronted with decaying socio-economic and ecological systems, policy and fiscal space constraints, illicit financial flows, unfair trade and investment regimes, unscrupulous debt distress, and the insatiable IFI conditionalities, restricting national capacities to adopt people-centered, rights-based, transformative strategies for sustainable development or COVID recovery. Asia and the Pacific is declared as the most vulnerable region to catastrophic consequences of climate change, with Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and Nepal among the most vulnerable across climate risk indexes, compounded by increasing pollution and biodiversity loss throughout the region. Moreover, COVID-19 enforced downturns led to unprecedented debt to GDP ratios rising to almost 49% across developing countries in the region, with Sri Lanka, Fiji, Maldives, Myanmar, Philippines, Cambodia, and Vietnam among the hardest hit. And yet, the demands for permanent cancellation of sovereign debt were not met. In fact, the loan programs negotiated during the pandemic pushed for further belt-tightening measures, not recognizing COVID-19 as a wake-up call. In the face of current failures, with the entire regions falling behind on the SDGs, it is high time that we prioritized urgent action on fundamental reforms, as the structures critical for action are falling apart, with the demise of public trust, surging socio-political and economic challenges, shrinking democratic spaces, and ever-exacerbating unequal power relations. This is compounded by the crisis in thought leadership, where the rhetoric of action-oriented and transformative is barely reconciled with the reality and continues to prioritize consensus over critical considerations, even in the decade of action and delivery. Excellencies, it is high time that we alter the business-as-usual approach by democratizing the terms of discussions around means of implementation to ensure equitable financing, technical and technological support for regions, peoples, and priorities left behind. Because although we're halfway there, we are yet nowhere near. Finally, the essence of partnerships requires broader and meaningful civil society participation parallel with the immediate reversal of corporatocratization of our deliberative processes to safeguard our democracies for an inclusive, efficient, and responsive multilateralism. It is upon us today, Excellencies, to adopt development justice now with bravery and conviction to ensure that we do not leave our generations or the future behind by adopting approaches that prioritize people and the planet over profits. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ali. We hear you when you say that Asia and the Pacific is the most vulnerable region for climate change, and we need to adopt development justice now.
In the spirit of policy coherence, so as to avoid going one step forward, two steps back, it's critical that we address some of the splits in our consciousness. I'll exemplify that. So while the official development assistance was barely able to touch a couple of $100 billion last year, the global military expenditure exceeded the $2 trillion mark for the first time, with the top 5 spenders putting over $1 trillion in weapons. So I think it's high time that we prioritized bread and books over bombs for a collective future that we all pursue. The other issue that I wanted to highlight is we've been hearing a lot of discussion around mobilizing private financing. Please note that the illicit financial flows amounted to over $7.8 trillion between 2004 and 2013, 5 times more than the official development assistance in the same time frame, while only accounting for trade mispricing, not factoring tax evasions, asset stealth, profit shifting, and so on. And these outflows continue to grow at a rate of 6.5% per year, which is twice as fast as the global GDP. So I think it's critical to systematically track the illicit financial flows and hold the corporations accountable, especially at the regional and global level, because it is simply beyond the capacity of national governments sometimes due to the neoliberal instruments like investor-state dispute settlements and so on. So that that could give us a considerable leverage as far as financing the SDG shortfalls are concerned. And finally, I think it's high time we need ambitious, bold, and committed multilateralism today that prioritizes critical considerations ahead of consensus, that provides the political will and leadership necessary to resolve difficult, contentious, yet collective issues to steer us through the troubled times we face today. Thank you.